The Dragon Ball franchise has been around for the longest time. Ever since 1986, we were introduced to many iconic characters and much more. The crazy part is, when you compare the games that were released back then to what we have now, all you can say is just wow. Not only have the graphics improved tremendously and gameplay wise, but in terms of just raw releases of games, we were presented to so many different ones. We have great games such as Fighters, Kakarot, Xenoverse 2, Budokai Tenkaichi 3, Sparking Zero, and the highly anticipated Xenoverse 3 for 2027. But today I wanted to do something a little bit different, as I have just been playing on my Nintendo 3DS a lot more, and just playing on it made me realize just how many Nintendo exclusive Dragon Ball games there were. So hey, without further ado, let's hop in and just see how many games are exclusive to Nintendo. Let's go. Going back to the 1990s, it was like the start of an era in terms of Dragon Ball games, where in 1992 we had Dragon Ball Z Super Saiyan Densetsu, which was a popular turn-based RPG covering the Saiyan Saga and Namek Saga using a card-based battle system. The game was only released in Japan and was not available for other countries. The funny thing is, the console itself was named a Famicom, specifically only in Japan, where it was then translated to be the SNES. The fighting system is based on a variety of different symbols, numbers, and the card itself. There are actually only 12 available characters in this game, believe it or not, so that was pretty interesting. Moving forward to Super Butoden, and just cause why not Super Butoden 2. By the way, if I'm pronouncing these things wrong, I'm very sorry. I'm trying my absolute best here. I even went on Google and said, how do you pronounce these? So once again, I'm sorry. As both of these games released in 1993, but Super Butoden was the first ever Dragon Ball fighting game and had a total of 13 characters, where you would start with 8 and 5 others would be unlockable later on. The cool thing about this game was when Fighters was announced back in 2017, you could actually play this game, Butoden 1, on your Nintendo Switch as a pre-order bonus. There was also a tournament mode where 8 players could select a character and compete against each other 2 at a time. The game sold 1.45 million copies in Japan and is still considered to be one of the best-selling Dragon Ball games in Japan to date. But also looking at Super Butoden 2, it's literally just Butoden 1, but covering extra arcs and movies such as BoJack Unbound and the Broly movies. But people did say they preferred this game over the first one. This game was also included in the game compilation J Legend Red Suiden for the Nintendo 3DS, and a digital copy of the game was made available for people who pre-ordered Dragon Ball Z Extreme Butoden, which we'll get to shortly. But for some reason this port was untranslated from Japanese. Going on to Super Butoden 3, it's crazy, there's 3 of them already, which was also released on the SNES, was the third installment of the Butoden series, and unfortunately for this game, it had no story mode like the other two. Instead, the tournament mode is what gets doubled down, and is pretty much the main course of the game. I guess the only thing people did somewhat like about this game was the fact that the charge time here was a lot faster compared to Butoden 2. We were also given 10 characters here, where 9 were normal and Trunks was the secret unlockable, where you needed a code to get him, which, why Trunks, but okay. This game also incorporated the Majin Buu saga, so I'm guessing that's why it had no story, as it was just one saga compared to the other 2 games that had more arcs. Now for the following game, it is going to have 2 in 1, and it's DBZ Super Gokuden, where in the first game you get to play as Kid Goku and work all your way to King Piccolo, which was the final battle. The game features a different overview combat system where your character flashes before he can attack. Goku starts on the bottom left of the screen while his opponents always starts in the top right, and both gradually make their way to the center, being able to attack at a certain distance. By pressing both the L and R button together, Goku will charge his ki and advance faster than his normal ki, which is also used for certain attacks such as the Kamehameha, Rock, Scissors, and Paper, and the sequel follows the story of Goku from his fight with Piccolo at the 23rd World Martial Arts Tournament in the Piccolo Jr. Saga, to his final battle with Frieza after Goku had reached his Super Saiyan state in that specific arc. And Gohan was actually also a playable character in this game, so in this game, just like its predecessor, the characters are seen fighting by their side. And last but not least, for the SNES games, we have Dragon Ball Hyper Dimension, generally considered the best fighting game on the console, featuring great visuals, 2.5D mechanics, and no split screen. Hyper Dimension features a story similar to that of the Dragon Ball Z anime, taking place from the late Frieza saga through the Kid Buu saga. Although it's not fully accurate, the only difference here compared to the previous games is that the select characters losing certain battles does not actually affect the progression of the plot. This game also had a tournament mode which allowed up to 8 players to fight, similar to the Budokan games, and even had a practice mode where you could master your combos and controls of the game. Wow, that's actually pretty crazy to think about, that the SNES had that many Dragon Ball games. But to be fair, Dragon Ball was definitely thriving back then, so I'm guessing Nintendo wanted to make some of that money. I mean, I don't blame them. Now fast forward to the Nintendo Wii. Yup, we jumped over like 10 years, as at that point Dragon Ball games were multi-platform, such as Sagas and the Budokai games were on the PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. But funnily enough, there was only one Nintendo exclusive Dragon Ball game for the Wii, and that was Dragon Ball Revenge of King Piccolo. It was released on July 23rd, 2009 in Japan. But then it was released on October 30th, 2009 in Europe, and on October 20th, 2009 in North America, and October 15th, 2009 in Australia. I really don't know why they did this, but they pretty much had different release dates for different parts of the world, which, why? Revenge of King Piccolo follows the story of Dragon Ball, OG Dragon Ball in fact, beginning from the start of Goku's adventures during the Red Ribbon Army Saga up until the defeat of King Piccolo. This game is not a game in the fighting genre, but instead is a beat-em-up game, which is very similar to the GBA game Dragon Ball Advanced Adventures. It had mostly 2D aspects to it, but it did have some tiny implementations of 3D to its gameplay. So yeah, that was literally the only Nintendo exclusive Dragon Ball game because the other ones were multi-platform. Now going on to the Nintendo handhelds really quick, and let's head back to the Game Boy Advance, where we actually had a few Dragon Ball games there that are still loved and cherished till this day. First off, let's begin with Advanced Adventure, which was released back in 2004 and was frequently cited to be the best action-adventure game that covered Goku's childhood. This game had great pixel art and deep RPG mechanics. Another huge game for the GBA was The Legacy of Goku, where it was released in 2002 and was the first action RPG and was considered to be pretty difficult compared to its sequels. After The Legacy of Goku, we would have its sequel, The Legacy of Goku 2, in 2003, where it did improve a lot of things from the first game and even gave you an open world type of feel and satisfying exploration. Now for the third game in this series, it would be Boo's Fury, which is loved by so many people and is one of the most popular and well-known GBA games. This was actually the best-selling game out of the trilogy for Atari, and no, we're not talking about the console, buddy. We're talking about the company behind these games, so hey, good for them, right? Pretty much nothing changed in terms of gameplay, but the game follows the Boo Saga and ends at the Peaceful World Saga. I don't know why they worded it like that, but it's literally just the end of the Boo Saga. This game also introduced multiplayer where 2 players can fight in the dojo. The next popular game would be Super Sonic Warriors, which was developed by Banpresto and released on June 22nd of 2004. This game features a story mode which covers all of the Saiyan Saga all the way up to the Boo Saga, but it did have extra scenarios for certain characters, which would be the what ifs introduced in this game. The game did sell pretty well considering it sold 160,000 copies in Japan by the end of 2024, and they even made a sequel to it on the Nintendo DS. There were other 2 games which were DBZ Taiketsu and Dragon Ball Z collectible card game. Taiketsu was a 2D 3D hybrid fighting game, but is often considered to be one of the weakest lineups of games for the GBA, which really does suck, but I mean, what can you do, right? And the collectible card game was literally just a virtual adaptation of the physical card game, which was cool, I guess. Now moving on to the Nintendo DS, the first game we have is Attack of the Saiyans, which was released in Japan on April 29th of 2009. The game was released in Australia, Europe, and America in November of 2009 with the Dragon Ball Z label. In Japan, the game was originally planned to use the Z moniker, but was changed later on to Kai to associate it with the Dragon Ball Kai revision. The game is a turn-based RPG that allows players to take on the role of 6 characters from the series, starting from the Piccolo Jr. Saga through the Saiyan Saga. The storyline in Attack of the Saiyans begins with the Z Fighters training for the 23rd World Tournament and ends with the battle against Vegeta. Similar to the 1994 Game Boy video game Dragon Ball Z Goku Hishuden, the game is one of the first games in the Dragon Ball franchise to be published by Namco Bandai in America, as the company would acquire the gaming license from previous license holder Atari in July of that same year. The game was met with fair criticisms, with the gaming critics complimenting the battle system, its visuals, and the ability to stay true to the series. It would go on to be the 3rd best-selling video game in Japan. The next game would be Super Sonic Warriors 2 and is the sequel to Dragon Ball Z Super Sonic Warriors, which of course released back for the GBA and was developed by Cavia and published by Atari for the Nintendo DS. It was also released in 2005. This is a 2D fighting game where the player chooses a team of 3 to fight against an enemy or another team. There are various modes to choose from which can help bring up the player's character roster and award dragon power when unlocked. Other modes include Z Battle Mode, Story Mode, Maximum Mode, Practice Mode, and Free Battle Mode. So yeah, there are a variety of different modes you can play, and if you ever want to play against your friend and go crazy on each other, hey hold on, that's not kind of weird. Hey wait, hold on, pause man.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
Dragon Ball Kai Ultimate Butoden was another DS game that features the return of the Butoden series since the 1997 game Dragon Ball GT Final Bout, which was released on the PS1. This game was released on February 3rd, 2011 in Japan only. Once again, this game's main aspect was its story mode from the Saiyan Saga all the way to the Buu Saga. It also had a huge roster of characters and many battle stages. Up next we have Dragon Ball Origins, which released back in 2008. Goku's the only fully playable character who is controlled with the stylus. Your goal is to get to the end of the stage, preferably very quickly, and Goku has 2 different modes. One where he attacks bare-handed and one where he uses his power pole. He also learns the Kamehameha, spin attack, and after image technique during the events of the game. The game covers the first 2 sagas of Dragon Ball, the Emperor Pilaf and Tournament sagas with some alterations. Following along we have its sequel, Dragon Ball Origins 2, which was released in 2010. It continues the story of Goku's early years as he and his friends search the world for the 7 Dragon Balls. At least here, we have the ability to play as different characters and the option to team up with a friend for co-op multiplayer challenges. Many people did state that the game did improve in terms of gameplay and control, so that's a plus. And last but not least, we have Dragon Ball Harukaru Densetsu, which released in 2007 and was another card-based role-playing game taking place from the Saiyan Saga all the way to the Cell Saga. Nothing too special, so I really have nothing else to say about the game, so it's just a card game. Now moving on to the 3DS era of Dragon Ball games, where we would start off with the most popular one, Dragon Ball Fusions. The game released in 2016, and unlike other Dragon Ball games in the franchise, Dragon Ball Fusions does not follow the story from the manga or anime. Instead, it revolves around the exploits of the customizable main protagonist, Tekka, and their friend rival, Pinich, who use the Dragon Balls to summon Shenron and wish for the greatest martial arts tournament ever, resulting in the rest of the story to take place in. This game was known for the most absurd fusion combinations, like, hey, if I wanted to make Krillin and Frieza fuse, that would literally be the most diabolical thing ever. I'm not even gonna lie, because it just is. Up next would be Extreme Butoden, which was developed by Arc System Works, the same guys who made Fighters. The game released back in 2015, and the game features over 100 fighters in both one-on-one and team battles. This game also had a story mode where you would go through sagas as either the hero or villain. This was also a 2D fighting game where players can create a team of consisting both battle and support characters to fight an enemy team in a one-on-one match. The main objective in the battle is to take out all fighters of the opposing team, either by reducing their health to 0 or by having more remaining health in total than the opponent when the time runs out. We were also presented different game modes such as Z Story, which lets you, the player, relive through the major battles of Dragon Ball. Then we have Adventure Mode, which is unlocked after clearing all the scenarios in Z Story. There was also Extreme World Tournament versus 4 Online, Quest Mode, which was a mode for Street Pass users to collect the 7 Dragon Balls and make a wish, and lastly Extreme Survival, where players would have to outlive endless waves of CPUs. Now for these last 3, they were Japan exclusive games, so even if you wanted them, I guess eBay could be the best place to get them, but the 3 games here would be Dragon Ball Heroes Ultimate Mission 2, and Ultimate Mission X, the full-on trilogy of the card arcade game. These games recreate the interface of the Dragon Ball Heroes arcade game via the touch panel. The player assembles a deck of 5 cards for battles. As the player uses the touch stylus to create a card formation on the bottom screen, the battle unfolds on the top screen. These games include a scouter function which uses the 3DS camera to take a picture of someone's face in order to check their power, which, hey, that does sound pretty cool. This would then allow the player to get more Zenny and other items. Now moving on to the final piece of exclusives, we have the Nintendo Switch, where we did actually get one game, and that would be Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission, and it did release in 2019, although it did get a PC port as well, so it's not really an exclusive even though you can play it on PlayStation or Xbox. This game was also the first Western release, making Dragon Ball Heroes debut outside Japan after 8 years. Wow. Similar to the original Ultimate Mission series, Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission allows the player to use either the buttons and analog sticks or even the touchscreen to play the game as if it were the arcade game. Players can access missions that led from the first Super Dragon Ball Heroes mission all the way to Universe Mission 2, and just like the arcade version, World Mission uses a turn-based card battle system in 5 rounds or less, which offers 7-on-7 battles with only 1 health bar for a team of characters. The cards featuring characters from the Dragon Ball franchise are given specific powers and abilities that allow for unique and strategic combat experiences. Now, I don't know if I said this previously, but I did state a few others because after writing the script I realized that I missed out on both the Game Boy Color and Game Boy handheld, so let's talk about those other games really quick. So for the Game Boy Color, there was only one game, which is pretty cool, and that game would be Dragon Ball Legendary Super Warriors, and it was released back in 2002. This was a turn-based fighting game and was also developed by Banpresto. It is played with the use of in-game cards for attacks, techniques, and support items. The game's story takes place from the start of Dragon Ball Z, the Vegeta saga, and runs right until the end of the Kid Buu saga and 2 stories involving future Trunks. Now in terms of the Game Boy, we have 2 other games, Dragon Ball Z Goku Hishuden, which is a role-playing video game released on November 25th, 1994 in Japan. It is the first installment of the Goku RPG series and the first Dragon Ball game for the Game Boy. The game is also compatible with the Super Game Boy in case you guys ever want to try it out. Despite the title, Goku Hishuden starts out during the end of Dragon Ball with Goku's fight with Piccolo at the 23rd World Tournament and ends with the battle against Vegeta in the Saiyan Saga. This game actually had some other game modes, surprisingly enough, which were the actual story mode, a World Tournament mode, training, and play. Yeah, that's the name of the mode. But the only downside of that mode is that it is only available via the Super Game Boy, where you can play as Goku and other characters. So yeah, if you did not have a Super Game Boy, you could only play as Goku, which I don't know, would that suck? I guess so. And last but not least, we do have Dragon Ball Z Goku Geki Toden, which was the sequel and the second Dragon Ball game for the handheld. It released back in 1995 and takes place immediately after Goku's battle with Vegeta and ends with Goku's final with Frieza, similar to the 1991 video game Dragon Ball Z 2 Gekishin Frieza. Hold on one second, yo, did I just discover something mid-script? Is this from where like the whole squadron name comes from? Gekishin Squadron? Yo, nah, I see you, Toshi. Oh, I've read your mind, bro.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
Most characters from the Namek saga can be fought during the story mode, including ones such as Zarbon and Frieza's transformed states. The game features 5 playable characters as well as Goku's Super Saiyan transformation. The game also features many extras such as minigames and a tournament mode. So yeah, that was the complete history of every single Dragon Ball game on every Nintendo console ever created, and in case I missed one, feel free to correct me in the comments down below. It's kinda crazy just how many Dragon Ball games were released on Nintendo and being exclusive specifically to them, and while yes, you could emulate them nowadays, it just doesn't have that same feel as you actually playing it on their destined platform. But yeah, what do you guys think? This video did take me a long while to do, so hey, I would appreciate if you guys could just leave a comment down below and tell me what you guys think of the video or what games you guys liked. I honestly don't know if we will ever get another Dragon Ball Nintendo exclusive, but if it were me, I'm guessing they will give us another one on Switch 2, possibly a sequel to Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission. Alright bro, what I'm about to do is pretty cringe, but I've never done it before because I don't like doing this, but hey, if you guys are new to the channel, it would mean so much to me if you guys could hit that red subscribe button, as our goal this year is 7,000 subscribers. Are we gonna hit it? Probably not, but it's a goal that I have. I mean, why not, right? But hey, what you guys think of every single game released? Which one was your favorite? And if you guys played any one of these, let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys on the next one. For now, stay safe, take care, and peace.